Hi, you've got a brain. It treats boredom like hunger, stops functioning the moment it sees a cat meme, and make you check the fridge constantly, even though it's empty. So why is it happening? Your brain wasn't designed for this world. It thinks you're still in the jungle. Your hardware is optimized for survival, not for routers, emails, or endless Zoom calls. That's called evolutionary mismatch, and that's the core of psychology. If all you had to worry about was hunting and farming, psychology wouldn't matter much. But you live in a modern world. Psychology is the study of how we make choices without actually thinking about them. Picture this. You hear rustling in the bushes, tiger or wind. You start analyzing. Congratulations, you're now protein. To avoid this fate, your brain learned to cut corners. It evolved heuristics, mental shortcuts that prioritize speed over accuracy. Let's look at the machine that runs this cheat code. Your body is full of wiring. Without it, you're just a soup of organs held together by calcium. This is nervous system. It's the command grid. There is a central hub, the brain and spine, and wires running everywhere else. Some of it thinks, but a lot of it just reacts. This hardware limit creates a software limit. The system isn't built to find the truth, it's built to survive uncertainty. You don't search for the perfect parking spot, you take the first one that fits. And good enough is basically evolution's motto. It means you're rational, but only within the limits of your 20-watt brain battery. We call this bounded rationality. This works great until it doesn't, and when it breaks in patterns. To see those patterns, we have to look at what the brain actually lets in. You think your eyes are cameras recording reality in 4K, but they aren't. There is too much data. If you processed every photon, sound wave, and fabric texture hitting you right now, your mental CPU would melt. This is selective attention. Attention doesn't take in the whole world, it blocks most of it. Roughly 99% gets ignored, so the remaining 1% can be processed. It's not a window, it's a spotlight. And anything outside the light might as well not exist. Take your nose. It's been sitting in your field of vision this entire time, but you successfully ignored it until I just mentioned it. Now you cannot unsee it. You're welcome. So what happens to the stuff you don't see? You assume that whatever makes it past attention gets recorded accurately. It doesn't. The brain hates empty space, so it fills in the gaps, smoothens over errors and guesses. This is perception. It isn't a camera. It's a reconstruction, a best guess based on limited input and past experience. The brain doesn't ask what's out there, it asks what is this most likely to be. Look at this image. You see a white triangle, right? But it isn't there. Your brain just invented it to make the picture make sense. Your brain basically running Photoshop's content-aware fill on reality, and most of the time, the guess is good enough, until it isn't. You look at a cloud, it's just a random water vapor, but you see Mufasa telling you to remember who you are, and then you cry. The brain assumes the world is repetitive, because that saves time. It doesn't analyze raw data, it matches what it sees now to templates it has seen before. This is pattern recognition. Lines become shapes, shapes become objects. Think about seeing a face in a power outlet. The brain snaps the pattern into the place instantly. It would rather see a ghost in the corner than admit it's just a pile of laundry. The brain prefers consistency over correctness, and that's where things start to break. Everything you just saw feel obvious. That's the problem. You trust your eyes, but when pattern recognition goes too far, you start seeing things that aren't there. These mistakes are called illusions. An illusion happens when the brain's best guess feels so convincing that it overrides the actual input. You don't think you see something wrong, you experience it as real. You wake up at 3 AM, you see a figure standing in the corner, you freeze, you turn on the light, and it's a pile of laundry. Yes, again. That panic wasn't fake, the prediction was. Your brain would rather scream ghost and be wrong than hesitate and regret it. The illusion isn't a glitch in perception, it's a perception working exactly as designed. Not a bug in your eyes, a feature of your software. Okay, so how does the brain learn which guesses to make? The brain doesn't guess randomly. It learns which guesses worked before and repeats them. It keeps what worked and drops what didn't. That's called conditioning. Conditioning is how the brain updates its shortcuts over time. The rule is simple. Actions followed by rewards get stronger. Actions followed by the pain gets weaker. No thinking required. Touch the stove, feel pain, stop. Check your phone, feel relief, repeat. The brain isn't asking if a behavior is smart or healthy. It's asking one question: did this work last time? Which means your brain is basically a rat in a maze, pressing the lever that wants to drop a dopamine pellet. But the system has a loophole. That loophole is that the brain doesn't just learn from rewards, it learns from relief. This is called reinforcement. Reinforcement strengthens behavior whether it adds pleasure or removes discomfort. Eat food, feel good, repeat. That's positive reinforcement. Silence notification, anxiety drops, repeat. That's negative reinforcement. The brain doesn't care why the feeling improved, it only notices that it did. Punishment works differently. It adds pain to stop a behavior, but it's unreliable. You don't learn what to do, you learn what not to trigger. That's why reinforcement builds habits, while punishment mostly just teaches people how to hide. But you don't have to learn everything the hard way. Watching someone else mess up is cheaper and funnier. This is observational learning. The brain treats other people as data. You see what gets rewarded, what gets punished, and what gets ignored. Then you adjust. You don't need to touch the stove yourself if you've already seen someone else do it. The brain is outsourcing the risk to the group. Why make your own mistakes when you can just watch someone else ruin their life for free? And once enough people repeat the same behavior, it stops feeling learned and starts feeling normal. But what happens to all this data? All of that learning has to go somewhere. This system is called memory. You probably think your memory is a library of your life. It isn't. It's more of a shredder that occasionally saves a receipt. Memory isn't a recording of the past. It's selective storage. The brain keeps what seems useful. Details fade. Gist stays. If something mattered for survival, emotion, or prediction, it sticks. If it didn't, it gets overridden. Memory isn't about preserving what happened. It's about preparing you for what might happen in the future. But how does it actually save a file? Memory doesn't save things automatically. Something has to get written down first, and most things never do. This is called encoding. Encoding is the process of turning experience into something the brain can store. Attention matters. If you weren't paying attention, it probably didn't get encoded. Emotion matters. If something made you feel something, it's more likely to stick. Repetition matters. The more often something shows up, the harder it is to erase. That's why you remember embarrassing moments from 10 years ago, but forget what you ate yesterday. The brain doesn't store events based on importance. It stores them based on impact. But even saved files get corrupted. Sometimes the problem isn't distortion, it's invention. You remember something vividly, confidently, and completely wrong. These are called false memories. A false memory isn't a lie you're telling. It's a memory that feels just like a real one. The same systems that rebuild real memories can also build events that never happened. Suggestions slip in, imagination fills gaps, repetition locks it in, and once it's there, confidence doesn't tell you it's fake, it tells you it's yours. That's the danger. Being wrong doesn't feel like error, it feels exactly like being right. All of this information doesn't just sit there, it gets used, constantly. The brain is always deciding what to do next, where to look, what to avoid, what to say, and what to click. This is decision-making. Decision-making is the process of choosing an action under uncertainty. The problem is that the brain never has enough information, never has enough time, and never has enough energy to calculate everything properly. So it doesn't try. You don't pause life to compute the optimal move. You act while the clock is running, and whatever decision you make has to feel good enough to move forward. That's not a flaw, that's the constraint. But there are two ways to do this. Most of the time, decisions are made fast. There is no analysis phase, no weighing of every option. The brain leans on heuristics it already trusts. Familiar patterns, past outcomes, gut feelings that are really just compressed experiences. If something worked before, it gets priority. If it feels familiar, it feels safer. The brain asks simple questions. Have I seen this before? Did this end badly last time? Does this feel normal? And then it moves. These fast decisions are efficient. They save time, they save energy, they keep you functioning in a world that doesn't wait. But they come with a cost. When the shortcut doesn't match the situation, the decision still feels right, even when it's wrong. Your brain treats the present and the future as different people. Present you feels real, future you feels abstract. So rewards now feel heavier than rewards later, even when the later reward is bigger. This is called time inconsistency. The brain discounts the future not because it's stupid, but because only the present can act. You plan to save money, then spend it today. Why? Because future you feels like a stranger. Planning lives in the future. Urgency lives now. The brain also doesn't calculate risk, it feels it. This is risk perception. Rare dramatic dangers feels more likely than common boring ones. A plane crash feels terrifying. A car crash feels normal. Fear stretches probability. Familiarity shrinks it. You worry about a shark attack while driving 80 miles an hour and eating a taco. Risk isn't evaluated by math, it's evaluated by emotion. Put together, decisions stop looking rational and start looking consistent. The system overvalues now, undervalues later, and reacts to what feels dangerous instead of what actually is. The decision still feels right, that's the constraint. So far, the brain has looked like a calculator with the shortcuts. But calculation alone doesn't move behavior. Something has to push. That push is motivation. Motivation isn't willpower or discipline. It's the system that decides whether an action is worth the energy right now. The brain doesn't ask, is this correct? It asks, is this worth the cost? If the expected return is too low, nothing happens. If it's high enough, the system engages. Behavior doesn't follow logic, it follows energy, and that energy comes from few specific sources. You go to a job you hate every day, I know. You're not doing it for fun. That's the power of incentives. Incentives are the external rewards and punishments that shift the cost of behavior. Money, grades, deadlines, or the threat of a prison. You filed your taxes this year not because you're a patriot, but because you wanted to stay out of cage. Incentives don't change who you are, they change what pays off. You're sitting in an important meeting, but all you can think about is a sandwich. This is a drive. Incentives push from the outside, drives push from the inside. They're biological pressure signals demanding relief. Hunger, thirst, sleep, the urgent need for a bathroom. A hungry brain doesn't debate philosophy. It narrows the options until eating is the only thing on the menu. Logic loses, relief wins. You're walking down a dark alley. You don't have time to analyze every shadow. That signal is emotion. Emotion isn't the opposite of reason. It's compressed information that ranks your options instantly. Fear signals threat. Anger signals abstraction. Joy signals reward. It tells the system what matters right now. Logic is just a PR guy who writes the press release after the decision is already made. By the time you think, the priority list is set. You're trying to not scream on your teammates who've messed up your whole game. The anger is real, just as your rank. But you also need to keep your friends. This is emotional regulation. Moving on, you feel like the same person you were yesterday, but you are actually a chaotic collection of conflicting habits. That feeling of stability is self-concept. It's the internal narrative that compresses years of behavior into a coherent character. You tell yourself, I'm smart, I'm messy, or I'm a night owl. You also need to explain who you are to other people, so you use the shortcuts. This is identity. Identity is the set of labels you wear to signal which tribe you belong to. Gamer, doctor, vegan, Swiftie. Once you put on the jersey, expectations follow. And once expectations exist, you start defending them. When someone tells you you're wrong, it doesn't feel like neutral information, it feels like a threat. That defense system is the ego. Ego isn't arrogance, it's protection. It guards the self-concept from damage. It creates the urge to dismiss criticism or double down on a bad take. It's a bouncer that kicks out any fact that isn't on the guest list. But sometimes the contradiction gets inside anyways. You believe you're a smart person. You just did something incredibly stupid. That mental pain is cognitive dissonance. It's the tension of holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time. Smoking while knowing it kills you, buying a car you can't afford. It's like listening to a death metal and a meditation app at the same time. The brain hates the noise, so it fixes the story, not the behavior. So the mind doesn't just process information, it protects the narrative. Facts get filtered, logic negotiates with ego, and consistency often beats accuracy. Next we zoom out, because none of this happens in isolation. Minds don't exist alone, they exist in groups. You walk into an elevator and turn to face the door. If you face the back wall, everyone would think you're weird. That invisible rule is a social norm. Norms tell you what's acceptable without ever being written down. Urinal spacing, elevator etiquette, knowing exactly how long to hold an eye contact. Violating a norm doesn't get you arrested, it gets you judged, and to your brain that feels surprisingly similar. Social friction registers as danger. You see everyone looking at the sky. You look up too. This is conformity. Conformity isn't about agreement, it's about alignment. You copy behavior because being wrong together feels safer than being right alone. Shaving your head and moving into a basement filled with nitroglycerin, chanting "His name is Robert Paulson" over a corpse. The brain doesn't ask, "Is this a cult?" It asks, "Will this make me stand out?" And standing out used to mean getting eaten. A person in a lab coat tells you to do something weird. You do it. That is obedience. Obedience is a compliance with authority, even when it conflicts with your own judgment. Give someone a uniform, a title, or a clipboard, and the brain toggles into follow mode. I was just following orders. It isn't an excuse, it's a description of the system outsourcing responsibility upward. When status moves up, resistance moves down. You wear a jersey for a team that doesn't know you exist. You feel proud when they win. That is group identity. Groups turn shared beliefs into us. Once that happens, disagreement stops being informational and starts being personal. Sports teams, political parties, iPhone versus Android. Being accepted matters more than being accurate. Loyalty gets rewarded, dissent gets punished. Your team cheats, it's strategy. Their team cheats, it's corruption. Same behavior, different interpretation. That is, in group bias. The brain sorts the world into us and them. Inside gets empathy. Outside gets suspicion. When we mess up, it's situational. When they mess up, it's who they are. It's efficient. It's also why comment sections are a war zone. Put enough people together and individual judgment starts to dissolve. Norms guide behavior. Conformity smoothens it. Authority redirects it. Identity locks it in. The mind stops asking, "What do I think?" and starts asking, "What do we do?" And under pressure, that shift gets stronger. Which brings us to the stress. You're usually a reasonable person. Then a deadline hits. Or a car swerves. Stress isn't an emotion. It's resource reallocation. The brain detects threat and pulls energy away from thinking to feed reacting. Attention narrows, time compresses, hands shake. You stop being a philosopher and start being a cornered animal. The system stops optimizing and starts surviving. You're driving in a heavy rain, looking for an address. You reach over and turn down the radio. That is cognitive load. The brain has fixed bandwidth. Fill it with stress and there is no room left for logic. It's like trying to do math while fire alarm is ringing. You turn down the music to see better, and it works. Intelligence doesn't vanish, bandwidth does. When pressure peaks, bandwidth runs out entirely. The system collapses into fight, flight, or freeze. 3 ancient defaults for 3 simple questions. Can I win? Can I escape? And can I disappear? Stress doesn't invite thinking, it replaces it. Under stress, the mind doesn't reveal character, it reveals constraints. Capacity shrinks, shortcuts dominate, control feels lost, which raises a final question. If the system runs automatically this often, how much control do you actually have? You feel like CEO of your own brain, but you're actually just the PR department. That feeling is conscious awareness. Awareness is the narrow slice of mental activity you can notice and narrate. Most processing happens before you even show up. You hear the thought after it's formed. You explain the reason after you act. Consciousness doesn't run the system. It takes the minutes, and it loves to take credit. You decide to lift your arm, but your brain prepared the signal before you ever felt the decision. That is perceived control. You experience actions as intentional, even when the decision was made below the surface. Awareness shows up late, sees the outcome, and claims it. It's like a toddler holding a toy steering wheel while the car is already moving. The illusion is useful. Feel like you could have done other ways, but you can actually choose from the options your brain serves you. That is a free will. Control exists, but inside boundaries you don't choose. Genetics, habits, incentives, and stress write the menu. You just order from it. You're not a puppet, but you're not the puppet master either. So who checks the work? You try to see if you're being irrational, but the investigator is also the suspect. That is metacognition, the system trying to monitor itself. There is no external auditor. Errors do not announce themselves as errors. They feel exactly like correct judgments. Confidence isn't evidence, it's just a feeling. Awareness isn't a master controller, it's a narrator. Useful, limited, often late. And now that you have seen the pieces, here's the system, fast. The brain is a survival machine. It runs on constraints, limited time, limited attention, limited energy, so it trades accuracy for speed. It doesn't process reality, it filters it. Attention blocks the noise, perception fills the gaps. Learning is conditioning. Rewards repeat, Pain stops. Habits automate the loop so you don't have to think. Memory is a liar. It doesn't record the past, it reconstructs it. Coding is selective. Retrieval is creative. Every recall is an edit. Decisions are shortcuts. Heuristics replace calculation. The present outweighs the future. Risk is felt, not computed. Behavior is pushed by incentives and pulled by drives. Emotion ranks the options before logic even wakes up. Identity is a story we tell ourselves. Ego protects it. In groups, we trade truth for belonging. Norms guide us, conformity aligning us. Us versus them simplifies the world. Under stress, bandwidth collapses. The system stops thinking and starts reacting. Fight, flight, freeze. And watching it all is awareness. That is the system. So that's psychology. Just a map of the forces already pulling on you. Now, normally this is the part where I'd say like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications. And of course, you're free to choose, totally. But your brain just spent 21 minutes learning how behavior gets reinforced, how habits repeat, and why easy actions tend to win. You know how it works. You've seen something useful. Doing nothing feels slightly wrong. Clicking feels easy, and easy usually wins. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. So if the video was useful, if your brain tagged it as worth repeating, you know what to do. See you next time.